So this is what passes for news today. And I wish, when I see that it's an opinion piece, I was hoping, oh, please tell me that it's just some outside contributor that the Star said, well, we got to throw some opinion pieces in here once in a while. So let's let them contribute this nonsense, even though we don't necessarily stand behind it, but we'll allow people to contribute. Although that's the thing, I also recognize that I pay attention to the mainstream media and the established media in Canada. I do see an awful lot of very left-leaning, socialist, communist, collectivist type articles, or people that would be like, these SJWs or these feminists. But I've never seen any article or opinion piece submitted by like a libertarian or someone that stands up for freedom and individual liberty, or a classical liberal. You don't even hear from any of these people anymore. It's like you wouldn't even know they exist. Well, except for people like me that just refuse to be silenced or suppressed. So, yeah, we do exist, and I make sure that's a reality, even though the established media will never let you know that fact. But, yeah, I don't have to rely on the established media because, hey, there's social media. There's alternative media outlets. We have the internet, and we live in the information age. So I don't have to rely on these people to say what I got to say. But I do like paying attention to the kind of people that they want to put forth and present as far as the kind of narratives that they suggest in their established publications. And this is by Emma Titil, or Title, whoever the hell this person is. And this is the national columnist for the Toronto Star. So not just some activist or individual that maybe don't know exactly what they're talking about. This is someone that's part of a major news organization in Canada. Yet this is the kind of identity politics type of rhetoric that they're trying to put forth and present. Headline out of the Toronto Star. Opinion, Star columnist. What does white privilege look like? Here are a couple of examples. By Emma Title, March 19th, 2019. On March 5, a man named Adil Kayani went to the bathroom on an airplane traveling from Marrakech to Manchester. He was on the toilet for about 10 minutes, he told British newspaper The Independent, when he heard a knock at the door. He told the knocker, a flight attendant, that he'd be out soon, but he didn't get a chance to emerge on his own terms. Instead, the flight attendant forced their way into the lavatory on the suspicion, Kenny believes, that he was up to no good. He was still on the toilet when they opened the door. I mean, look at all the pictures they put there as a subtle hint of the MAGA hats, right? Like I say, these people are trying to propagandize your mind, and if you're unwilling or incapable of figuring that out, well, that's why I'm here, folks. I'm trying to help you out in that regard. I feel completely violated, the 35-year-old Muslim of Pakistani heritage told a newspaper about the incident. I think it's racial discrimination. They can see the color of my skin. Meanwhile, according to The Independent, the airline says it was following procedure, and flight staff claimed Kayani had been in the bathroom for at least 15 minutes, not 10, hence their concern and subsequent break-in. But come on, who hasn't taken a long time in the airplane bathroom? I certainly have, thanks in no small part to the Air Canada bistro menu, and no one ignored my calls of, sorry, just a minute, before busting into my stall in a panic. But then, I don't look like Adil Kayani. If you're still confused about what exactly white privilege means, it means that when you take a long time on the toilet, people assume you're taking a crap, not that you're readying yourself for a terrorist attack. Actually, this is one thing that I've said, and I've noticed this because, like I say, this is the beautiful thing about paying a tremendous amount of attention to the kind of rhetoric being espoused by people, is you do get to learn about their psychology and where they're coming from, their perspective, and where they're deriving their opinions or their perspective. And what I have noticed from a lot of these people, these leftists, these collectivists, these identity politics types, these ones that play the race card or the sex card, it does seem like most of the time, there are some exceptions, but most of the time these people seem to be projecting their own internal biases, their own internal dialogue in their mind, their own prejudices onto everyone else. So that's the thing. When they're thinking about, this is the way the world must be, because in their mind, that is how the world is, right? To this person, the world is all divvied up by everyone's just racist, or they stereotype everyone, or they're prejudiced. And probably what it is this person probably has that kind of residual concepts roaming around in their own mind or in her mind. But that doesn't mean that we all think that way. That's the thing. Don't try to project your own internal biases, your own ignorance, or your own prejudices onto the masses. That's the problem with these people, and I get it. These people function in these weird, like, if you want to talk about people that would be mostly surrounded by a bunch of white nationalists or collectivists or people that think they're holier than thou or above everyone else or that look down at everyone else. I mean, come on. These are people in the established media or in the established political parties. These are people that are like the ruling class, the elites. These people truly do function in environments where, like, they're in gated communities where every one of their neighbors probably look almost exactly like them, probably all have the same color, right? Have all basically the same kind of jobs and occupations. So these people, like I say, everything about their lives, whether they're in their social lives or their work lives, is all about true division, right? So they think that that division that they recognize in their own lives is a reflection of the rest of society, which, as we all know, that is not even closely to being a representation or a reflection or even a reality-based concept in regards to how I've ever lived. I've never seen any of this personally in my own life, right? Because I grew up mostly as just a lower class kind of guy, blue collar class. I don't think of actually, I mean, I might have made it into the middle class technically a couple times in my life, but it didn't last very long because there was always someone in Canada. That's one thing I've always noticed in Canada is somebody's always going to try to bring you down the minute you've shown that you could be even remotely successful in any way. So I guess that's why a lot of Canadians always go down to the U.S. If they want to be successful, if they want to be prosperous, or if they're entrepreneurial in any way, I guess the only way that's going to unfold and play out for them that's conducive to their ambition is down in the U.S. because they have the right psychology, they have the right philosophy for the most part, as far as how that country's set up and as far as how they treat each other and how they respect each other as far as their ambitions or their goals. Canada, I've noticed my whole life. Most of my fellow Canadians, or at least a substantial portion of my fellow Canadians, they can't stand to see anyone be more successful than they are. And the minute they recognize that someone else has done so, then they will try to tear you down or bring you down in some way. And that way, that's what makes them feel better. That's the problem with collectivism or socialism or fascism or communism, is to create equality is to bring everyone down to their level. But nobody's happy way the hell down there. You know, you can be happy at many different variances and many different levels, but to equalize things out where everyone's at the same level, well, then nobody's happy. Not even the people that want to bring everyone down to their level. Because once everyone's down the same level, well, you're all in the same you're all mired in the same shit, and you're fucking going to be constantly bickering and fighting with each other because you got nothing left to pivot to. Now you just got to turn on each other, right? Anyways, let me continue on. But white privilege is also this wearing a MAGA hat around town, an accessory that is synonymous with xenophobia and racism, and playing the victim when someone gives you a hard time about it. Well, actually, MAGA, Make America Great Again. That's what it stands for. But like I say, these people want to conjure up something in their mind and make it suit whatever they have in their mind. They want to, like I say, project that on everyone else and then react as a consequence of what they've conjured up in their own mind. Who cares about what everyone else perceives it as what it means? Like the MAGA hat wearers are thinking, no, I just want to make America great again. Most of them anyways. But yet, who cares if what they believe in their mind, no, I'm going to make what I believe in my mind override and overrule whatever it means in their mind. So once again, top-down authoritarianism, collective groupthink, just absolute bullshit, folks. In other words, white privilege is thinking you're an oppressed minority because you can't wear a racist symbol without being called a racist. I'm certainly no fan of racial profiling, but if there's anyone I'm inherently suspicious of and frankly afraid of in a post-Pittsburgh, post-Christchurch world, in a society with a growing white nationalism problem, it's definitely not Muslims in the lavatory. It's white men wearing red hats that say, "Make America Great Again." Wouldn't it be nice for a change if one of those guys were rudely interrupted on the toilet? So once again, rather than, hey, you know what? As far as what happened to this gentleman in the toilet, this apparently Muslim person, you know, I'd be totally on board and say, yeah, that's probably not fair. The airline probably should have given the person more time. Actually, we'd be completely in agreement there. But the minute you turn, it's like, well, someone else was treated poorly, so, hey, if you treat a Muslim poorly, well, hey, well, then that's tit for tat, right? Let's treat some white people unfairly because that's a good response and that's a good way to react. Well, that's where we divide. That's where we disagree. That sounds very resentful. That seems very petty. That seems very authoritarian. That seems very vindictive. Me, I'd be like, let's help this person. But once again, these collectivists, they want, like I say, that race to the bottom. That's the only place where they want to congregate to, and I guess the only place they'll ever feel comfortable, but won't last very long once everybody's down there at the bottom with them. But they just want to bring us all down rather than try to raise us all up. That's one of the biggest problems I see. I'm only kidding, of course, but is she? I don't believe that MAGA hat wearing men should be followed into bathrooms, but I do think it's perfectly acceptable to give them a hard time about their headgear and to embarrass them in public, especially if they are Canadian. And most especially if they're wearing their MAGA hats to a vigil honoring the Muslim victims of an Islamophobic hate crime committed by a white nationalist. Once again, I don't know, just people wearing hats. Are they doing anything violent? Are they doing anything like physical actions, or even with their words? Are they soliciting or promoting using preemptive violence towards Muslims or people in these minority groups? Then we're in agreement. But just because they're wearing a hat, once again, these are people, like I say, they're taking identity politics to the fucking extreme, and I don't even understand why they don't realize how you're only going to cause a ramp up and escalation with this kind of division and this kind of violence. I don't know. Do these people secretly revel in causing division and hatred and escalating civil conflicts? I don't know. It sure seems that way to me anyways. This week, footage emerged online of a young white man wearing a MAGA hat at what appears to be a vigil on Toronto's York University campus honoring victims of the New Zealand mosque shootings. Needless to say, no one in the camera's frame is happy to see him there. In the words of one attendee, there was a fucking massacre and you're wearing a symbol of racism. Get the fuck out. In keeping with the traditions of his tribe, MAGA hat guy smirks before he walks away from the crowd, and then someone knocks that half off his head. Good riddance. So it was a crowd, a big group, and one guy. And I guess he was wearing a hat, but what was the response? To knock the hat off his head and to try to physically intimidate the guy. Who's being the oppressor under that situation? And you wonder why people don't have any respect for you identity politics types? You collectivists? This is exactly the reason why. Because we know who the true authoritarians are. And we know if you had real power, that it wouldn't be just a matter of knocking that man's hat off. We know exactly how that probably would have played out. The sad thing about Canadian Trump supporters, assuming this guy is a Canadian and not an American student who actually voted in the 2016 U.S. election, is that they don't even have a horse in the race war they're so amped up about. They're like fans of an overseas sports team who show up to the pub and complain that their game isn't on the TV. To borrow a word from the team's captain, aka Trump himself, they're losers. So yeah, basically, I guess pointing everyone out that wears a MAGA hat and calling them all losers. That's another way. I guess that's a great way to virtue signal and get them all. Hey, we'll all be singing "Kumbaya" soon, won't we? You know, using this kind of vitriol towards people for wearing a particular kind of hat or for supporting Trump. Which, like I say, even a lot of the big wigs and the hacks in the media in the U.S. have had to admit that no, Trump's not a white nationalist. Well, once again, as long as it aligns with the political rhetoric that people like this want to espouse, they'll run with it no matter how many people get harmed or hurt along the way. But they're also a uniquely scary kind of loser, because where American Trump supporters can at least claim to appreciate the U.S. president on account of some of his more benign policies while disapproving of his racist rhetoric, Canadian Trump supporters can't. They're in it for the racist rhetoric, because what else have they got? As journalist Sana Said put it very well on Twitter this week, Canadians who wear MAGA hats and support Trump terrify me on another level. Their attraction to him isn't policy. He's not their elected leader. It's purely his rhetoric and what he symbolizes as a leader of the white insurgency. That, or they're extremely loyal fans of The Apprentice. Either way, they're a sad, scary bunch. Steer clear and stay vigilant. So, like I said, nothing divisive about that. I'm sure that's going to de-escalate things. I'm sure we're all going to be singing Kumbaya here. Just matter of days, folks, matter of days. No, in reality, you know what this is. This is stirring up hatred and division. That's literally what these people are doing. And they want to pretend that they're, in reality, they're just virtual signaling to their tribe. And they're saying, use my rhetoric, use what I'm saying to ramp up your own internal hatred towards these people and just use that to your advantage. Don't know how they think that's going to work out good for society or even for them. Because at the end of the day, if we're in some kind of massive civil conflict or civil war, who's benefited? Neither sides of any war or any conflict are actually benefactors when you think about it in a proper perspective. They're all going through hell, folks. Me, I don't want to be mired in this kind of hell. I want to rise above it. And I want to bring everyone else along with me. Rather than do what this person is, which is trying to race everyone down to that lowest common denominator, to that stench, to that misery, to that hellhole that they seem stuck and mired in and seemingly never want to escape. And I guess if they never want to escape or they can't escape, like I say, I guess the only option for them at that point is bring everyone down there with them. I say rise above it. I say, well, at the very least, stay above ground. It's Canadian Libertarian, and I love liberty.